Hi, Facebook. What's up? How's it going? Everybody staying safe? Got your masks on? At home? Quarantine? Like me? Going a little stir crazy? Hopefully not. But in some of my free time, I got to thinking, for those of you who are going to start working from home, your bosses have said, hey, why don't you work from home? And the reality is sitting in that, well, it's a little claustrophobic at home, or you don't have your workspace, or your kids are bothering you, or your husband's asking you to make a sandwich, and you're at home now. What the heck are you supposed to do? How do you stay productive? And so I want to answer that question for you, because you may not know this, but I have been working from home for close to 10 years and building companies and managing teams all across the globe. So what I have done for you, a special treat, is I've taken all of that collective knowledge, a decade of knowledge, and I've put it into kind of like a cheat sheet, top 10 list that I'm going to share with you today. I got a cool little slide deck to share with you. And I'm also going to be giving away at the end of the broadcast my top 50 productivity tools, helping you stay focused, get your team focused, organized, anything you could want. I'm going to share that with you. And so that is coming at the end of the broadcast. So make sure you stay tuned. I want to show you, we're going to kick it off. Here's my slide, 10 plus work from home tips. And then look at this. I think this is interesting data. 5.2%, according to the U.S. Census data, indicates that 5.2% of U.S. workers currently work from home, and that's in 2017. That's most latest data. That is close to 8 million Americans working from home, but now that's going to go through the roof. So as we all kind of define what the new normal is, I want to show you kind of what I do to kind of help manage me and my time. So what I'm going to show you is my first tool, and this one is really related to time management, and this is good for if you're managing a team. So let's say you're in a management position and now you have a team that's at home and you're like, man, what are they doing with their time? Are they actually working when they say they're working? I don't really know. I have a tool that I use with my teams, and it's called, drum roll, Time Doctor. And so when it comes to time management, do you know how your team's spending their time? And if not, this is a great tool that lets you do that. So what it does is, and this is also good if you're working from home too, because sometimes you can get distracted at home. And so for me, I actually run Time Doctor even for me, even though my team uses it, because it allows me to see kind of what I'm working on. And am I getting distracted? Because every time you have to stop and walk away, you pause your little clock, and then you realize, oh man, I've been away for like 5 minutes, or oh, I'm bouncing between all these different projects. I better stay focused on one. And so it's great even for individual use. So I use it, but I also have my team use it, because one of the cool things that it does is it monitors their mouse movements and their keyboard. And then you can even take a set a function where it takes a screenshot of what they're working on. And so at first you're like, ooh, that sounds a little intrusive, but you would be surprised how many times I have found employees doing things on company time when they shouldn't be. So whether that's chatting with friends, whether that's watching a Nicolas Cage movie, whether that's finding, unfortunately, just employees looking at things that they should definitely not be looking at on work time, you'd be surprised. And so if you find yourself managing a team remotely, I really think Time Doctor is the way to go. And the cool thing is too, you can run it on your phone. So when you want to leave the house, you can just run it, right there on your phone, or you can even enter time manually. So that was the first tool. All right, I had some coffee before I got on here, so maybe a little wired. All right, so now we're going to look at, okay, so what do you do when you have to meet with your team remotely? You want to do a face-to-face, you kind of want to see them, talk to them, you want to have a meeting, and we all can't get together anymore. So what's a really great tool to do that? Now, there's lots that are out there you can pay for, right? There's things like GoToMeeting and Zoom. You can use Skype in some cases. But I think a really great one that's cheap, that's free, is Google Hangouts. And so Google Hangouts allows you to just jump on really anywhere in the world, and you can have, I think on the free version, you can have up to 10 or 15 people in there with you. And so it's just a great way to get together and do an online meeting. And so that's, for me, one of the best free tools I have used. And I have chat set up now too, everybody. So when you message, I see some people in here like, oh, I'll watch this later. So good. Well, thank you so much. So now I can see you. I'm getting advanced. All right. So, and I use OBS to do this, by the way, in case you're wondering, like, how is she doing all this cool stuff? All right. So let's talk about now online communication. All right. So now we want to talk to our coworkers. How are we doing that? And I'm going to show you the tool one or two tools that I think is good for that. But what people don't understand is when you go remote and you go online, you kind of lose a lot of visual cues, right? So you don't have like body language, and you definitely don't have tone, like what people are saying. Sarcasm really gets lost, so you have to be really kind of careful what you say when you're chatting. But one of the other things is when you are having a problem and you want to say like, hey, look at this. Like, I need you to see what I see. You need a tool that's going to do that, and especially if you're on a computer. So the thing that I suggest for this is something called Snagit. And so Snagit allows you to capture your screen either in an image, and then you can write all over that image. So you can do a screen grab, and then you could say like, hey, look at this, and pull an arrow to it, or you can highlight it in like a yellow, kind of like a translucent yellow. And so you could do a still image, or what's really cool is you can do up to about 5 minutes of video. And so I use this all the time. I mean, all the time with my remote teams. You'll be really surprised because you just want to like send a quick note to somebody, and you're like, oh, hey, here, I need you to take a look at this. Like, what's going on with the website? Look at this error, and you circle it. Or if you want to show somebody a process. So if you're trying to train an employee and you want to demonstrate a process of like, this is how I input a check, or this is, this is how you update a customer's profile. This is how you enter an order. You can film it. And so sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 videos at 5 minutes each, depending on what the process is. But I find that I use this all of the time. Okay, so now we're going to talk about project management. So a lot of you, right, if you're like my company, we have a lot of different quarterly goals that are going on. We have everything from website redesigns to, we do a lot with donors, new donor initiatives. And then within that goal are a lot of micro steps. And so how do we track that? How do you keep all your projects straight if you're not all in an office? I mean, some people are in an office now and they got it all on a whiteboard, of like, this person's doing this, or they got Post-it notes. People do all sorts of things. So what I like to use is online project management, and there are dozens of online project management software out there. Great stuff. I mean, great stuff. Depending on the type of project you have or the business you run, some are better than others. And so I'm going to show you one that I think is kind of like super simple, really straightforward. Anybody can use, but at the end of the broadcast, I'm going to give away a PDF of just 50 plus tools that I use and have used, and a description for each. And so the one that I'm going to show you right now is one called Trello. And so Trello is more of a board. Is like board management. And so think of it as like 3 or 4 different columns. And so you can have one that says like to do, and then you can have one that says currently doing, and then you can have one that says done, or you can label them whatever you want. And it's like they turn into kind of like little Post-it notes, and you can just click and drag and click and drag, and you can share it with your whole team. Everybody can see you can all have different boards too. So at a click of a button, you can go see what Jane's doing or what Brad's doing, and where are they at? What are they currently working on? So that's a really simple, straightforward one. But there are really great, other great, more robust project management software out there. I mean, one's called Mondays. There's another one called Asana, and so that's very popular if you're in development and you're doing like weekly sprints. There's another one that we've started using. It's called Metronome, and so Metronome is very robust, and it goes along with scaling up and the whole book on scaling up, but quarterly goals and yearly goals, and and then you could track everything, actually Metronome in of red, yellow, green, but it is very involved. So I'm not throwing that one out there. If you have teams of probably like 15 to 20 or more, Metronome would be great. But if you have a smaller team, then I'm going to suggest things like Trello or Monday. Okay. Now let's talk about communication. So how do we talk? Like, what's the new water cooler? How are we even gonna communicate with each other? I mean, email is kind of a drag. Who likes to open up their email inbox and you've got 30 or 40 emails there for simple stuff? And so how do we communicate? One that is out there. I'm going to show you the other one, the one that I'm going to suggest. But there's another free one. It's called Skype, right? Most people know what Skype is. Maybe you talk to people on it when they're out of the country, or maybe you have hired remote workers before and you talk to them on Skype. But Skype is pretty straightforward, right? It's basically chat. And so what I do, I use Skype, and there's another one I'm going to suggest here in a second. But with Skype, you can group conversations. You could put people in a group, and let's say it's like website redesign, and all the stakeholders are added into that group. And then you can have one that, maybe it's just for your managers. And so you have a Skype chat that's just for managers. And so that way, not everybody's getting all of the messages. Like I have one for support. So when my support staff have questions, it goes to me and like the other managers. And so I think it's a very efficient tool. I also like it because you can go back and see what's been said. And so sometimes I actually like it for that reason, for documentation purposes with staff. It's you can go back and see I said this, or I wrote this to you on this day at this time. And, maybe they, it's like, I missed it. And you're like, well, here it is. And you can just kind of like quote it back and say, this is what I said I wanted. So Skype's cool for that reason. You can also put documents up into Skype. But what I want to get at is there's kind of a next iteration that I see myself and our team moving to, and that's a program called Slack. And so Slack is similar to Skype in its basic functionality with the grouping, but you can do more things. Like you can attach files, and it integrates with a lot of platforms that are already out there. So like we talked about Trello. And different project management software. It'll integrate with those things. So as you're talking about a project, you can have a chat for it right there that pulls right in. And it does all the same stuff Skype does, but that's really like the new cool up and coming one. Like if you ask your millennial office worker, it's like, oh, we're on Slack now. So anyway, Slack's the new cool one that's coming up. All right. The other kind of question mark is, especially if you're running a team, or if you need to do file sharing, is basically like where you're going to put everything. Now, some of you might already be doing this. You might have cloud-based storage, but now more than ever, you're going to need to start using it. And so there's really two, I think, primary options out there. If you're looking for just plain old file storage for your team, I'm going to suggest you go with something like Dropbox. And so they have a business plan for Dropbox. Everybody can log in and access all of the same. That's the next one. Don't look at that one. That's the next one. But you can log in and kind of see where everything's stored. But I also really like, and I'm going to get to this at the end, I'm kind of like jumping ahead, but I really like Google for file storage. And I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. But Dropbox is really straightforward. Most people use it probably just to store your photos. I don't know if you know this, but Dropbox, just in a personal account, you could sync it with your phone and all your photos can go right up there right after you take them. So I know some people use iCloud, but as a backup, you can also throw them up into Dropbox. Okay, so this is one that you may not have thought about, and that is like sharing passwords online, especially if you have like an online company and a lot of remote workers and you are going into like different software like graphic design software or CRMs or whatever it is. I know I go into stuff with passwords all the time. So how do you give passwords away in a remote office and still make sure that all of your data is secure? I know a lot of times we just kind of feel the pressure. You're like, oh, well, just give them the password, right? Just give them the password to Authorize.net. Just give them the password to PayPal. And you're like, do I want to do that? I don't think I want to do that. And so a way around that is a software called LastPass. And so LastPass is really cool because it functions like a lot of the other software that remembers passwords. I don't know if you guys do this, but I don't write them down anymore. Like they're just stored online in LastPass. And I have a little like browser extension that sits up there. And anytime I go to log in, it asks me like, would you like me to remember this password? And I'm like, yes, I would. And so it saves it. And the next time I go to the site, it says, would you like to use this password? And I'm like, yeah, I would. Well, I've been in online marketing for a long time, so I probably have like 100 Gmail accounts saved in LastPass. And so it's like, but they're all there and I can just click on it and it just autofills it for me. But what's cool about it is that if I want to share that password, username and password with somebody I work with, I can send it to them encrypted where it'll go into their LastPass account and they can click to log in, but they never see the username and they never see the password, but they can get access. And then if that employee ever wants to leave, I'm able to revoke that access and say, no, okay, I'm going to remove this password from them. So you never actually give it away, and then that helps you not have to change all of your passwords when an employee leaves, which is a cumbersome task if you're doing that. It's no fun. All right, so other interesting tools is, let's say you're on the phone, like you're on Skype and you're talking to somebody. Obviously you could like screen share, but let's say not everybody is like has Skype or has, Slack or whatever you're in, but you want everybody to see your screen. One tool that I think is cool is one that's called JoinMe. And so JoinMe sits right at the top of the screen. So you see where that big arrow is and this little box there where it says like, it's got like the little arrow clicking on the screen button. But what it'll do is it just kind of sits right there up on your screen. And then if you're on the phone, you're like, oh, hold on, let me share my screen. And so you click the little screen button. And then what it does is it activates, it'll give you an option. Do you want to share your whole screen or do you just want to share one window of your screen? Like, do you just want to share Safari or do you just want to share Microsoft Outlook? So that way, which I always recommend that. Sometimes like when you share your whole screen, you forget what you're doing, which can lead to problems. And so anyway, so it's a really cool tool where you click on it and then it's going to give you a URL, like a little tiny URL. It's like join.me / and it'll give you a number. And then you just take that link, you can just throw it out to anybody who needs it. So you could text it to them or you could put it in Skype or whatever. And then everybody's able to see what you're seeing on your screen. So I didn't know if you guys know that one. I like it. Okay, so we're getting to the end. We have a couple more. One thing that you may not realize is when you work from home and you're using your personal computer, everything starts to blend together. And then this fun, like, vacation of a device starts to feel like it's a lot of work and you don't want to be on it. And for a really, really long time, I mean, I've just worked that way, and I just try to segment the time in my day of like when I'm doing personal things versus when I'm doing work things. I know some people who have totally separate devices. It's like my desktop is my play computer, and then my laptop is my work computer. But what I have found recently is a program called Shift or Switch. I'm sorry, wrong thing, Switch. And so Unified Workspace is what I'm calling this section. And this allows you, I'm going to leave the screen up for a second because this allows you to connect a bunch of different apps. So things we've talked about, things like Dropbox or Jira or Asana or your customer support desk like Zendesk or Zoom, it all connects. And then what it does is all those apps, they sit on the left-hand side. So you can see where it has like LinkedIn and then Evernote, and then it's got the Dropbox icon on the left there. All those things sit there and they're all signed in. And so this becomes an application that houses, the way I'm using it, that houses all of my work stuff. So it's like I can open up, oh no, it is Shift. I said it right. I was thinking Switch at the top. Okay, but I can open up this application and I can just work in that application. And I don't have it open for, because it'll even open up websites and stuff. And so it's like I can contain all of my work in like one bucket. And this application becomes my bucket, and I don't have to go outside of that. I don't have all these, because you know how it is. Like if you work from home, it's like you got 10 tabs that are probably, work related, and then you have 4 or 5 that are like personal. And I just don't like them blending together. That's me. I don't like that. And so, like I said, I can't believe I'm like drawing them. I've been working on this all day for you, but it's Shift. All right. And so you can download Shift and you can play around with it. And then in the top left, you can connect all your emails. And so if you have Gmail accounts, like I have Gmail accounts, that little circle picture is like one of my Gmails, and then in the top right it has the email, it has the calendar, has all of it. And so I really enjoy it, and just throwing it out there if you're like me and you like things kind of separate. Okay, so now let's say you're at home and you've left your work computer. Your work computer has Microsoft Word, it has PowerPoint, Outlook, all those things. And you're like, my goodness, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to fork up the cash for more, for word processing software? What am I going to do? If you don't know about it, I'm going to throw out the suggestion that you go over and sign up for G Suite. And so Google Suite has the equivalent of Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and it even has this cool thing called Forms. And what it does is you can upload any Word document, it'll open it. It's got all the similar functionality, and I actually like it. I actually like it a lot better than Microsoft products. It does some really cool stuff depending on different applications you're in. But the Word version, like Google Docs, is exactly like Microsoft Word. And then Google Sheets is similar to Excel, but I like Google Sheets because it'll do graphics, or how do I say this? It'll do like graphs. And so let's say you have a data set, automatically you can just say insert graph, and you can say this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis, and it'll do a projection. Like I just did that for emails of like these emails are getting open and these emails are not getting open, and I can see it in like a donut chart. So I think that's really cool. Other things that are really neat about Google Suite is that the more people on your team who have Google accounts, you can edit in real time. And again, this is something I use all the time with my team, is that functionality. And so let's say I'm writing email copy and my team's written it. They send it to me for an approval. I can sit there and I can edit it. And let's say like my boss can jump in and he can also edit, and we're all editing at the same time, and it doesn't mess with the document, and it takes away from that really awkward, uncomfortable, here's the Word document email, and then I make edits, and then let's say somebody else is making edits on their computer. There's no integration. Like there's no way in real time to see what's been done and who's working on it. And I think it makes things more efficient too. So editing in real time is awesome. I was going to also say one other thing about that. What was it? I mean, there's other cool functionality too, where you can share it. You can have it locked and then share with different people, or open it up where everybody can kind of get access to it. It's pretty neat. I had one more cool thing about Google Suites, and I can't remember it. Anyways, it'll come back to me. If it's really important, it'll come back. So those are my kind of like top 10 must-haves for working from home and working remote. I think there are tools that are really going to help you. Take some time to check them out. If you're a manager and you're trying to learn how to manage your team remote, those are super, super powerful tools I just outlined for you. And the two must-haves, in my opinion, or really three, we're going to say three, is that you have to have Time Doctor for your team. You absolutely have to have that. I absolutely think everybody should be on Google Suite. That's a must. And then you really need some sort of online communication tool. So either Slack or Skype. And one of those two becomes the new water cooler. And so now I want to talk to you a little bit about work from home culture and some of the pitfalls you should try to avoid. And so I've got like 6 tips, and then I'm going to end with a really important topic, which is how to do conference calls. Because you would not believe, I have so many stories of conference calls gone bad, and things you really need to know and you really need to look for and remember before you get on the conference call. Otherwise, things can get really awkward and weird. So let's first talk about tips on working from home, okay? Tip number 1 is maintain regular working hours. So there's this idea, this romanticized version of working from home where, it's like you sleep in, you get up when you want, it's just like work is itself just goes out the window. And so if you don't maintain regular working hours, what will happen is that work will begin to follow you everywhere. So it's not just work, work during the day. You're now working at night. It's now 6, 7 o'clock, and you're still sitting at your computer because you haven't set a discipline of walking away, of saying, no, it's 6 o'clock. It's time for me to shut the door, go out, make dinner, or spend time with my family, or whatever it is, go play games, whatever it is. But you have to leave the office. And so when you're at home, um, it becomes really difficult when work stops. And so maybe it starts later, but it might go till, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. It sounds crazy, but it happens. And I know a lot of people that work from home, and that's what happens. So you have to maintain regular working hours. The other thing that is really, really critical is that you want to keep a dedicated office space. When you are new to working from home, again, I think there's this romanticized idea of like, I'm going to wear my pajamas and I'm going to work from bed and just drink coffee and I'm going to have my messy bun. It's going to be awesome. But as cool as that is, what you're actually doing is bringing work and the feelings of work and sometimes the drudgery of work into spaces that are supposed to be sanctuaries, right? Like sanctuary spaces, like the bedroom or your family room or wherever it is you like to relax. Do not bring work there. And that's why it's really important to set a dedicated space that is like your office. And if you don't have an office for a really long time, I didn't have an office, especially when we moved here to Dallas. I had like a nook. I had like a little table between the kitchen and the laundry room, and it's like it was just small, but it's important to say like, this is my work chair and this is where I sit when I work, because you don't want to necessarily bring it to the kitchen table. You don't necessarily want to bring it to the couch in the living room, because again, then it's just kind of spreading and it's going everywhere. And when you have a great day, who cares? But when you have a bad day, you don't want those bad feelings in your sanctuary spaces. And so just mentally, those are two really important things, is dedicated working hours and a set space to work in. Because too, there's a psychology, right, of like getting into work mode. I mean, a lot of us, it's like we get our coffee, we get dressed, we go to the office, and then you're in work mode. And so you have to kind of recreate that new routine of, okay, I'm going to get my coffee. I do this. I get my coffee. I kiss Liberty. This is my daughter. I say, all right, I'll see you later, and then I go into my office. And so I have an office now in our new house. But before, I had a little nook. But it's important to have that routine. Okay, so moving on, next thing is over communicate. Working remote, and I kind of said this earlier, you begin to lose things like tone, inflection, facial expressions, body language just totally goes out the window, like doesn't exist anymore. And so anyways, so what you want to do is, what did I say here? Not everyone is in the conversation you've been having. Oh, this is important. Okay, so when you're Skyping, all right, when you're sending a message to somebody, and this happens sometimes, and sometimes with new employees, I notice this. It's like they've had a conversation in their head for like 30 minutes, and then they'll Skype me or message me, and it's like 6 thoughts into whatever they're thinking about. I'm like, I have no idea really what you're talking about. So what I want to say in that sentence is always provide context. Is before you send the message, just take a step back and say, okay, what does this person really need to know before I send them this message? And always be really specific, in context of trying to explain what you're wanting to convey. And so ways this goes wrong, right? Not just in Skype, but you can even just be on the phone and you're talking to somebody, and now since you're not together, you can't necessarily say, I want the newsletter to look like this, and so now you're explaining it or you're sending screenshots. I think it's really important, a really great exercise just in life in general, especially as a manager, or if you have anybody that is reporting to you, is after you've explained something, instead of saying, okay, or does that make sense? And the answer is just yes, is to have them instead say, okay, can you say back to me what it is that you think I'm asking you to do? And so now they're going to re-explain to you. It seems like it might take more time, but my goodness, it saves time in the end. I mean, countless times I've seen this work or fail when people don't do it, especially in the graphic design world. I don't know why that is, but They say back to me what it is you think I'm asking you to do. And then they'll say it to you. And then that gives you the ability to clarify it and say, oh, no, I wanted that to go to, I don't want that email to go to my whole list. I want the email just to go to this segment, this tiny bit. And so always over communicate. And always try to send a video of what you're seeing or experiencing. So instead of trying to type out 6 paragraphs, right, of here's what's happening over here, use that Snagit tool that I just told you about and do a short video where you're screen sharing and you're saying, this is what's happening. Look, it's saying the item's not found. It's not in our database. So instead of typing all of that, send a short video that somebody could just watch for a short 2 minutes, and then they can respond right back to you. And so it's just that's what my big point is, just please try to over communicate. That's huge in an online office. And is one of the harder skills, I think, for people to really grasp. Okay, so the next 3, and then we're going to move on to our conference call tips, is socialize and celebrate your colleagues. And so when you're online, and this is so hard for extroverts. So I'm an extrovert, but I don't think I'm as high on the scale as most of them. But you can start to feel lonely and disconnected and isolated. It happens all the time. And so one of the things that I've kind of done is I have just kind of like a general team chat, and that's kind of like our fun chat. And so, like, for example, today on the call, we were talking about like different marketing techniques, and we were saying, somebody on the call said, I just heard today on the radio, they said, hey, what's your favorite Beatles song? Like, if you could share one Beatles song with somebody who's never heard the Beatles before, what song would that be? And we were thinking like, oh man, like that'd be so cool to do with our products, like out of all of our products, if you could only share one with one person and introduce them to what we do and who we are, which one would that be? And so we're thinking about doing that. But then I got to thinking, I was like, well, wait a minute. What is your favorite Beatles song? And so then we went around and we were like, what's your favorite Beatles song? And then so we put it in the chat. Everybody lists it out, and then it's like, okay, now let's go make a playlist on YouTube, and we'll all listen to it today while we're home and working. And so it's just like fun. It's a fun chat. It's kind of like it turns into the water cooler chat where you share funny memes or funny videos, and it's just a way to socialize and talk. And there's room for that in an online office, and there's a culture that needs to be built like that. And so one of the other things I've done, not at my current company, but at a previous company, we were really remote. Around the world, I had staff. And so one of the ways we kind of brought fun to the team and team bonding, because a lot of them were men, is we played online video games together. And so now I did not win a lot of the time, but we had a day and a time on like a Friday at, 11 a.m. was video game time. And so they played video games for like 30 minutes, and they just shoot each other. It's one of those first person shooter like team games, like capture the flag games, guy games. And so they would just have a great time doing that. And it's kind of cathartic too, it's like, I just shot the COO in the head. It's just stupid fun stuff like that. And so you have to make room for it in an online office. The other thing is you really have to celebrate people. And also, like, when you have a big win, you need to share the win with your teammates. So let's say you close a new account and you're like, hey, I just closed the Johnson account. You put that in the team chat, your fun chat, and everybody in chat is you got to make a big deal out of it. It's like people sending, emojis and memes. Like, it's a way to do that. Or if you're live on a call, maybe that happens in the chat, but if you're the manager, or even honestly, if you're on the team, you have to work to build this type of culture, and to say, hey, I saw that Tom closed the Johnson account. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You've been working on that for 6 months. Way to go, and then send them like a Starbucks gift card or something like that. Like, there's cool things you can send online, and it's all done remote. So to combat the feeling of loneliness and disconnect, everyone really has to be intentional to build a culture of connection. And so those are just some fun ways to do it. I'm sure you guys can kind of think of some other ones. Other things is if you're new to working remote and being home, Um, One of the weird psychological things I've seen people trip over is calling other people. And so you might Skype or send a text message, but then it just kind of goes like radio silent. And there's some sort of thing in our head that it feels like, oh, I'm bothering them. Like I've called once or twice, so I think I must be bothering them. But sometimes in an online world, like you don't know, like in an office, you could see like, oh, Mercedes has been in a meeting for like 4 hours this morning. That's why she hasn't answered. I'll make sure I talk to her after this. But in an online world, you don't really know that. And so I guess you could tell people, hey, I'm gonna be in a meeting all day. But sometimes that doesn't happen. But as a subordinate employee, there is a psychological thing of I don't know if I should keep calling. And so one of the things I wanted to just stress is that that's a real thing and that you should not be afraid to call and like pick up the phone and call. Because sometimes people don't see the Skype message. Sometimes people don't see the text message, or the email. And if it's something urgent, you're like, oh, I really need an answer on this, like right now, call. And so don't feel awkward about it. And also, if you have a team and you're switching to remote working, please make sure you tell your team that to say, hey, call me. If you need me, call me. Or if you're a subordinate employee and maybe talk to your manager about this topic and say, just so you know, we're going remote. And because things mess up. And as a manager, I would rather you harass and harangue me for the right answer than make a mistake and really mess something up and you move forward because you think, oh, this was the right decision. So I'm pretty sure other managers would feel that way too. So you want to tell them, hey, make sure you tell the team green light and calling you, at from this time to this time. Okay. Last tip, all right? I know I'm kind of going on and on, but this is good. I hope this is good information you like. If you like it, give it some thumbs up. All right, so last one is set meeting times. What happens in the online world is you kind of go from the occasional like door knock, like, hey, how's it going? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I got this question for you. You have maybe a small culture of that at the office because you're on a really regular meeting schedule and people are used to having meetings. And so when you switch to online communication and you have Skype or you have Slack or people are calling you, it gets really a lot more random. It's like, hey, do you have that presentation? Could you send it to me? And it's like, especially if you work with a lot of people, it just becomes a lot. And so one of the things I really like to stress to my team is if you can, over communicating is great because if I don't see the text all the time, you can put it in the chat because sometimes I just need to turn off Skype. I put it on Do Not Disturb because I have to focus on a project. And so you're going to find you'll do the same thing. So when you over communicate, like we talked about, and you say, here's the question, here's what's happening, here's a video, I can write you back and give you the answer immediately. Like if you say, oh, I need to talk to you, and you're not giving me all the details and not empowering me to solve the problem with all the details, that's difficult. And so if you can't do that, the thing that you should do is rather than ask somebody 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different messages throughout the day related to maybe one topic, it's kind of condense what your questions are and then set a meeting time with that person and say, hey, can we get on the phone 15, 20 minutes? I got 6 or 7 questions for you. Here's what they are, right? Like I always like when people tell me, what are we talking about? Here's what they are. And then set that meeting time because otherwise people might not see the Skype message, like I said, and it could go a day and a half. Now you moved on and you forgot about it. So it's always, always good to set meeting times. All right. So those are like my really like big, like must do, please be aware of this top 6, things you need to know about working from home culture. All right. Really going to save you a lot of like mental anxiety. And so I was going to add to that list, conference call etiquette. And I was going to do a little blurb, and then I realized there's too much we need to talk about when it comes to conference calls because I've seen them done well and I've seen them done really bad. And I'm sure if you work in an office, you have too. And it's just comical. I mean, it's like an SNL skit sometimes with how people are. And so I want to give you the do's and the don'ts. All right. So this is my list of how to conference call. And so the first, I put show up to meetings because you need to really be present, all right? And so we're going to do a lot more of this, obviously, since we're all quarantined right now. But here are some best practices for conference calls, all right? Oh, there's two on that first line. But the first one is share your video. Build a culture of sharing your video, because what drives me nuts is that I'm online, I'm normally running the meeting, and I can tell when people are either half listening, not listening, typing in the background, and it drives me crazy. And so it's important to share your video. One, so everybody's engaged and focused, and two, because you want to build that culture of connectivity. And so, like I said, like things like I'm talking to you now and you can see my facial expressions, you can hear my tone, you can see it, you can see me, right? And so, like, we've just added in another 2/3 of communication other than listening or text, right? So it's really important. If you're going to work online for any extended period of time, share your video, because it's like being in the same room with somebody, okay? Number one. Number two, for a conference call, please arrive 3 to 5 minutes early, okay? That allows for chit-chat time with your coworkers. It's like, hey, how's your daughter? Oh, did you do that thing? Oh, did she get that award? Oh, she made the soccer goal. Oh, so cool. It allows for the chit-chat time. And that should really ideally happen before the meeting. So get there 3 to 5 minutes early. If you're running the meeting, allow the meeting to start without you there as the manager, so it's not like people are waiting around for you to join. Set up your Zoom so people can just jump in there and join, all right? 3 to 5 minutes early. Okay, make sure once the meeting starts that you mute your mic until you're ready to speak or if you're asked a question. This happens all the time. This is like, to me, basic conference call 101. Mute your mic. So once that meeting starts, you do your chit chat time and the meeting's starting, go ahead and mute, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, it's like you might have somebody walk in the room, you might have the doorbell ring, your dogs might start barking. It could be anything. And so mute your mic. Or like I see people keyboard and maybe they're taking notes, but it's like, just go ahead and mute your mic. So that's a rule for me. The next one is have earbuds on hand for any echoing technical difficulties. Inevitably, somebody's got their volume up too loud and it starts coming back through the speaker and then it starts echoing, or somebody's on, you're gonna in a smaller room, like maybe let's say like, you're like, I've had this, I'm in a hotel room and my family's in the other room and I got to go sit in the bathroom and it's an echoey space. And so if I'm talking like I am now, it's going to echo. So bring earbuds, have earbuds on hand just in case you need them, plug them in. That's the thing to do. Okay. And then the other thing is you want to start meetings with light conversation, life updates, or shining moments. And so I know I said do this for the first 3 to 5 minutes. If for some reason it's not happening and you're facilitating, or let's say your employee on a call, build a culture like this because it produces connectivity. And so, if you don't maybe know all of your coworkers that well and, you're not used to doing the light conversations, a nice activity I've seen is like, hey, any big wins this week, anything happen over the weekend, any shining moments, doesn't have to be work related, it could be personal. Encourage people to like, yeah, went down to a concert, or I played at a show, or I, did this arts and crafts project with my daughter, whatever it is. It's like, have people start to share those moments because you need that connectivity. And you need to realize that people are human beings and not just robots that work all the time. Okay. Oh, that's my last slide. Hold on. Let me get to my other one. Oh, I had a whole other one. Here, let me just move me. I don't know if this works, if that'll work. We'll see. Okay. So then my other one is important things to remember. Okay. This is critical. Please be sure your background is cleaned up, organized, and presentable. I have had people I work with and I love them. They're competent. I mean, they get their job done, but for some reason, they got a pile of laundry behind them, 6 boxes, and, a case of Kit Kats. And you're like, what the heck? And like, you can't even listen to the person. This is what happens, all right? Welcome to working remote from your home. You just can't focus on what's being said because you're too busy looking in the background and you're like, I love this person, but like they may need an intervention. It's things like that you don't even realize that it's like people can't focus. And so if you're in a space, like you see, my space is clean. Now you don't know what's on this side of my screen, right? I can have a whole pile of junk over here that you don't even see. But behind me, you think I got my stuff together. I could have a ton of stuff on the floor you wouldn't even know. But what I'm saying is, just please be sure the area that's in the camera here is clean. And Skype has a functionality for all the people who don't have all their stuff together. They have a functionality where it'll actually blur all of this behind you, and so it'll be you, and then it's blurry, and you can't make out what it is. So just FYI, if you're one of those people and you don't have the time to pick everything up right now, get on Skype and hit that blur the background button, okay? Okay, so then the next practical thing to think about before getting on a conference call is tell any other family members in the house. These are your kids, this is your husband, your wife, whoever's living with you. Hey, I'm about to start a meeting in about 5 or 6 minutes. Please keep it down for the next X amount of time. If you're going to a 30-minute meeting, I always tell my daughter, hey, I'm going into a meeting. I'm going to need you to keep it down. Don't yell, whatever. Don't sing too loud. Don't laugh too loud. All sorts of stuff like that, with kids. And I try to do the same thing with my husband. Praise God, my husband's a little more intuitive. He can hear me talking like this, and he'll know she's in a meeting. So just make sure you let everybody else know. Super critical, right? Or even I've done stuff like this where it's like, if you're getting a package delivery and you got a meeting that's happening, write a note for the package guy and stick it on the door and say, hey, just drop the package out front. I'll pick it up later. Okay, so that's pro tip, things you might not be thinking about. The other thing you might not be thinking about is your internet speed. And so maybe it's cool for just checking Facebook, but all of a sudden you get onto like Zoom, or you get into some sort of screen sharing and your video sharing, and all of a sudden it's like you're like, and people can't hear you anymore, right? That's a real drag. So what should you do? All right, there's like a prep step is always going to a place where you can check your internet speed. And so you can go to speedtest.net. And what that'll do is it's like a little go button, and it'll go way out there, and it's like send a package. It's like, hey, it's downloading this package. Oh, okay, all right, now let's upload this package. And so it'll test your internet speed. And so you just want to make sure, you're moving fast enough in order to do Wi-Fi and video conferencing and screen sharing, all right? So that's one thing. The other thing is always as a backup, I like to have my cell phone around, and sometimes I'll even check the meeting call information. So if for some reason something goes wrong, again, it's like, oh, my earbuds aren't connecting, or something's wrong with my Bluetooth headset, I can't figure it out. What I'll do is I'll have that call information ready to go, where I can put it into my phone and I can just dial in. And I mean, there've been times I've done stuff like this where I'm here, but it's not working on my laptop, but I'm on my phone talking and doing the meeting. So every scenario I've been through, people. Okay, so here's the other thing too. Speaking of screen sharing, this is like the really awkward stuff and things you just really want to avoid. And like, really, let's please think about screen sharing options. So if you're in an office and it's like, hey, I need to see the Templeton file. And so it's like, oh, sure, sorry, let me pull it up right now. And you go to do a screen share and your desktop isn't presentable, or you don't understand you can just share a window and not your whole screen, you end up showing stuff you don't want to show. And I, unfortunately, have been on the receiving end of some conference calls like that and screen shares like that. And you're like, whoa, I just saw way more of your wife than I really wanted to see in this moment. And so, let's be really smart about that. Make sure your computer's presentable. The other thing to think about is turn off notifications. And so like I have a Mac, and so if you go up in the top right hand corner, there's like 3 lines and 3 dots, and you click there and you just scroll up a little bit, it says like turn off notifications. Like my notifications are off right now. And then also like I turn Skype off. I put Skype in do not disturb, because do you know why? Because I have text messages that come through onto my laptop, and when I turn off that notification, nobody else can see them. So if I'm in a situation where I have to share my whole screen, I don't have text messages coming in from my husband or from my daughter on my screen for the whole company to see, or Skype messages. I've had this happen before too, where it's like you're on a conference call. It's a team conference call. And so let's say Brad gets done talking, Brad's long-winded. all of a sudden I get a Skype message from a coworker friend of mine that goes, boy, can you believe Brad? Could that have dragged on any longer? And then all of a sudden it comes across on my screen because I forgot to turn Skype off. Now Brad's like, oh, what does that mean? I don't think I was long-winded. Oh my gosh, Susie really thinks that about me? And so it's happened, people. It's happened. So learn from my mistakes, and please make sure that you turn all that stuff off. Other thing to do, and now that I'm thinking about it out loud that's not listed on here, is clear your browser cache. So if you're now on your home computer and it's like, oh, Stephen, will you please go to the Drudge Report? Let's look at those headlines. And Stephen goes to Drudge Report and he's being retargeted for ads. Maybe his wife was looking at something on Amazon, maybe some new lingerie to spice up the old bedroom action with the husband. Now, the poor guy's got ads showing up on Drudge Report for, he's being retargeted by Amazon for like a nice nightie. So it's like nobody needs to see that. So I know this is crazy, but again, it's happened, people. So clear your cache, all right? Clear your browser cache, or have one browser that's really dedicated to work, and your other browsers are for like looking at cruises to when cruises start again, but looking at cruises to the Bahamas. Okay, so crazy, I know, but this is why this section is so large. All right, last thing is please make sure you speak up on meetings and say things like, hi everybody, it's Bob. I'm here. How you doing? Or, hey, it's a great meeting. See everybody later. It's like you want people to know that you're there. If you don't want to feel isolated and you don't want to feel alone, make sure you try to just build that culture of connectivity, okay? And so encourage one another. That's so important, and so important in our time right now is to just really be edifying one another. And so anyways, those are my lists. Those are my tips. And then I wanted to show you, I did make this for you guys. Okay, what I've done is I've taken this whole slide deck that I just went through with you, and it's those 10 tools that you can work from home with. I think it's a great presentation to show to your coworkers. If you're a manager, it's something you can just quickly click through and show people. And then what I also have are the 50 tools, everything from productivity to project management, all sorts of stuff, how to communicate. There's like I said, there's probably 50 plus tips and tricks and things in there for you to go through. And so I call them 50 plus work from home hacks. And I think you guys will really, really like it. So you can go get them all at workremotetools.com. And I've uploaded them there, and you could just check them out. And I think you're really, like I said, I think you're going to love them. I think they're really, really going to help a lot of people. I was trying to think about like, what could I do just to really bless people during this time? Like I don't have a lot of stuff. Like I feel like I can, it's like you can't get with people. It's not like you can even give things away. It's like you can't even go like feed homeless people who might really be suffering right now. So you feel like, what can I do? Like how can I help people? And so I got to thinking like that there's just so many people who are working from home right now, and I know how frustrating it can be because I have a lot of staff that it's a steep learning curve. And so I was thinking, okay, what can I do just to make it better for people? And what can I do to kind of I've done this, like I said, for 10 years. I've built 2 companies working from home and Starbucks, really. And I just love it. I love working from home. I don't actually want to go to an office. It's very hard to get me to go to the office because I love how productive I am here at home. And so these are the things that I've used. Those 10 tools I use every day. And the ones that I have listed out for you in the 50 plus PDF that I have for you, and let's just put it up there one more time, but it's workremotetools.com. Those are designed, I was like, these are the things I can give. These are the things that I can give to people and give to you and really help people as they try to navigate, how do I do this? How do I get into a normal working rhythm? How do I balance it out with my kids or my husband? And it's just like, there's so many things to think about. And so I really think the tools that I have here, and then even more so all the ones that I have in the PDF at workremotetools.com are really going to bless a lot of people. So anyways, this is my broadcast. I just thank you all for watching. I see all your comments coming in this time, so I'm so glad that worked. And if you would just think about sharing this and tagging your work from home coworkers that are now working home with you. That would be great. But I just really hope that this has been a blessing to everybody. And if you like this type of stuff, let me know. I can talk about a lot of different things. Like I do marketing, I do, process development, company management, all sorts of stuff. But like I said, I was like, oh wait, I actually know a lot about working remote. And so I just wanted to bless you guys with this stuff. So hopefully it has been, and I will see you all later. Bye.